All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We're going to continue the discussion with the legislative updates. And joining us, we have Louise Dunlap with Dunlap and Browder. And again, we also want to thank our project, our conference sponsors, the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection, Pennsylvania Environmental Digest, ARIPA, Earth Conservancy, Ernst Conservation Seeds, Graymont, and Tetra Tech. Again, for those of you that may be just joining us right now, participants are asked to ask questions through the Whova question and answer session app, which is, if you're on the web, to the right of the program. If you are on an app, it will be on the phone, it'll be right below. We'll provide an opportunity for questions to the presenter, time permitting. We'll try and stop this at about 27 minutes. And then the speaker can also follow up with you afterwards. Again, as a reminder, please do not use the chat in the Zoom player. Louise, I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you for attending, and we're looking forward to your presentation.
Well, thank you, and thank you, Janie and Ann. This conference is just miraculous. I've attended these in person over the years, but this is one of the monumental achievements of EPCAMR, WebCAMR, DEP, and everybody involved. It's just amazing what you've done. So it's also very strange to not have my mask on. It's almost like driving without your safety belt. I've had my mask on for so long. Anyway, I look forward to being able to see everybody on the different presentations. I'm going to focus. I'm keying off of the really excellent analysis that Greg Conrad did, and I recommend to everybody to save his presentation, use it as a reference point, because as we go forward into the new Congress, there are going to be many changes, and it'll be very helpful to have Greg's analysis of the bills we've been dealing with this year as a reference point, so you don't get totally confused. First of all, I am from Lancaster, where we don't have coal, but we have limestone quarries, which are very important for AML work. And I live on the Chesapeake Bay in southern Maryland. I'm going to also do the following. I'm going to divide this into three parts. One is a little history of how we got here. A little bit about the lame duck. That's very brief since it's all a big question mark. And then the third part is to focus on the next Congress, which is called the 117th Congress, which begins in January. And there's a lot of speculation that I don't want to get too bogged down in, because until we know the results of the election, it's speculation. But I can still give an update that I think might be helpful. I got involved with SMCRA way back in 1971. It's really important to know a couple things, which is, one, it's always been a bipartisan effort, and the role of Pennsylvania, in addition to watershed groups and coal-impacted communities all over the country, has been central to the passage of SMCRA, which survived 2 vetoes, and going forward with the AML fund and the various reauthorizations that we've had to do over the years, and which we have coming on again. I got involved in this coming from Lancaster. I went to Duke University. Don't hold that against me. And I was very disturbed by Duke Energy mining practices in Appalachia. And I read Night Comes to the Cumberlands by Harry Caudle, a book I recommend to everybody. And I started meeting with citizens groups in Appalachia and in Pennsylvania, and never got around to going to law school. I started working on the strip mine bill, and it took from 71 to 77, and I was just a small part at the tail end. The first legislation was introduced in 1948, and then there was a hiatus, and then Ken Heckler, the late Ken Heckler of West Virginia, introduced a bill around 1970, 71 to ban all strip mining in 6 months. Well, that got everybody's attention. It turned out, and it's important to know that the United Mine Workers of America and Arnold Miller, the president of the UMWA at the time, supported a ban because it was adversely affecting the health and safety of miners underground, because it was cheaper to go up into the hollows, up to the mountains, and strip mine. We actually had a ban on mountaintop mining for 3 hours. It was achieved in a morning markup and taken out right after lunch. The legislation had hundreds of amendments over this period of time, and it was really driven by citizens groups. And then I'll explain what Pennsylvania's role was. There were citizens groups, watershed groups in Appalachia, the Midwest, the Powder River Basin, where ranchers and the ranchers' wives came to Washington to lobby. There's a big joke. The ranchers stayed home and the wives came to lobby. And tribes out west, and again, watershed groups and ag groups. So that was the coalition that we cobbled together. And by way of slight further introduction, I'm not an attorney, an engineer, an economist, but what I do is I collaborate and I put campaigns together, and I put teams together that are much smarter than I am and knowledgeable. And that's what led me to Pennsylvania. In the early days, I spent a good 3 weeks at one point in Harrisburg with DEP, with a man named Walter Hine, who became ultimately the first director of OSMRE. And he was our sort of star witness, because whenever the coal industry during these markups said, we don't know how to do X, Y, Z, Walter would say, well, we're doing it right now in Pennsylvania. And Pennsylvania's interest was that it had, for the time, a good strip mine law. And some of the coal industry interests were saying, we're going to move to West Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, Ohio, unless you weaken your law and your regs. So Pennsylvania had a self-interest in getting SMCRA passed, which helped us a great deal. The very first bill was introduced in 1948. I won't go that far back, but it became clear to those of us working, hopefully, to ban strip mining, especially in the mountainous areas, because we were trying to help the deep miners. It became evident that we needed, even if we were successful in banning strip mining, it would take a good 7 years to phase it out, and we needed regulations for those mines that were already in existence. That's what took me to Pennsylvania. So Walter Hine became my tutor in many ways, as did an assistant attorney, an assistant DA from Scranton named Ernie Priate, who later became the Attorney General of Pennsylvania, who spent months and months in our office in Washington. I should say it's important also to note that the two great bookends in terms of directors of the Office of Surface Mining and Reclamation are Walter Hine, the first director, and the most recent, fully confirmed by the U.S. Senate, director, Joe Pizarczyk, who's also a speaker at this conference, and he served for 8 years. So Walter Hine and Joe Pizarczyk both played very important roles. In addition to that, and to underscore the bipartisan nature of all this, there was a congressman from Williamsport, Pennsylvania, who was on the Ways and Means Committee as the ranking Republican. And those interests in the coal industry that were trying to kill the bill wanted to move the AML fee over to the Ways and Means Committee for jurisdiction. And if that had happened, it would have been killed entirely in the Ways and Means Committee. We didn't have the votes there. So Herman Schnabely of Williamsport, Pennsylvania, ranking Republican, chose not to ask for jurisdiction. The chairman was okay, but the ranking Republican could have deep sixed it. And by looking the other way, he made it possible for us to keep the AML fee in the House Natural Resources Committee. And that's why we make a point of calling it a fee, not a tax. It never made it to Ways and Means. And that's a very important distinction as the debate goes on. Fast forward, I began working. I did a number of other things after the law passed, but always keeping my eye on enforcement, which remains a struggle in some ways, but that is not Title IV AML, that's Title V. Anyway, around 2005, I met John Dawes. I was referred to John Dawes by Mountain Watersheds Association, Bev Braverman, and I started to help him work on the 2006 AML reauthorization. I was only on the last 2 years of that fight, that campaign rather. John had spent 10 years on it and continues to be our North Star and our informal leader of the Pennsylvania AML campaign, and I am the Washington point person for the Pennsylvania AML campaign, which has no budget, no letterhead, but is a very vibrant group of diverse individuals, including DEP, the IMCC, watershed groups, FCAMR, WEPCAMR, Pennsylvania Environmental Council, and obviously the Foundation for Pennsylvania Watersheds. Anyway, so I also want to mention that in that, a little footnote, on the 2006 reauthorization, another Pennsylvanian played a key role, Republican senator, who later became a Democrat and is deceased, Arlen Specter. And Arlen Specter was a real hero to us. He saved us from annual appropriations that were causing great difficulties and a strain on our groups. But anyway, so even in 2006, Pennsylvania weighed in with an important person. Currently, DEP through John Stefanko, Brian Bradley, Eric Vaza, and a number of others, forgive me for not mentioning everybody, DEP and BAMR are playing a key role once again because Pennsylvania is, well, I don't know if we want to use the word cursed, but Pennsylvania has the most AML sites in the country. And so the opportunities and challenges are the greatest right here in Pennsylvania. And the other groups like National Association of Abandoned Mine Land Programs and IMCC work closely with DEP and others, but the knowledge and sophistication of DEP I have been able to observe at namelet meetings is respected nationwide, and we are very, very proud of the work that's being done. So now I'm going to also mention a little bit recent history about what happened in 2019 that I don't think Greg touched upon. And that is, it's really important for people here to know that, again, the Pennsylvania delegation has played a huge role, leadership role, in getting AML reauthorized. We don't have it done yet, but we're getting there. It was a year ago at this conference that Glenn G.T. Thompson came in person and announced his support for HR, what became HR 4248. It got introduced September 9, 2019, and Matt Cartwright was on by video. And off to the races we went. And in the last year, what we were able to do, as Greg mentioned, was we had a really accelerated timetable in the House with the House Natural Resources Committee. And Pennsylvania, with its House delegation of 18 members, here's how we did it. Out of 18 House members in Congress from Pennsylvania, 12 supported both 4248 AML and HR 2156, the Reclaim Bill. 12 of the 18 supported both bills, and 4 were Republicans, 8 were Democrats. Not supporting either bill, important to note, Scott Perry, Lloyd Smucker. Smucker said he would support it, but he never got his letter of support in. And Joyce, who remains a mystery and does not respond to many different efforts to engage him. 3 supporting one bill are as follows. Guy Rushenthaler is a co-sponsor of 4248. Keller, 4248. They're both Republicans, as many of you know. And then Dwight Evans of Philadelphia is a supporter of 2156 Reclaim. We hope to pick up his support on AML. I think it was just a logistical problem. People had to get letters into Matt Cartwright. The 2 leads are Matt Cartwright from the 8th District, and of course Glenn G.T. Thompson from I don't want to get his district wrong, but you all know him, the 15th District. Thompson has the most AML sites in the country, and Matt Cartwright has the 2nd most sites in the country. So that's our House lineup. And if anybody's interested in the specifics, I can give you the party affiliation and the district numbers, but I won't go through that right now. Over in the Senate, we have a situation where Casey has supported S 1193. It's a marker bill by Manchin of West Virginia, and it's very, very stripped down, but it does 2 important things. It would extend the AML reauthorization for 15 years, which is our top priority, and at current fee levels. Toomey, as you know, has announced he's not running for re-election and apparently not running for governor. He's remained silent, but he will be a senator till January 2022. So he is a prime target for cooperation, and we look forward to getting his support. So now I'm going to also just real quickly go through the 3 big deadlines to pay attention to. In the lane, well, first of all, election is November 3. Then the CR continuing resolution, which Greg mentioned, expires December 11th. And then the big question is, will it be a short extension, a long extension? We don't know. Our ability to get AML on a must-pass bill is confined by, we have to have a legislative hearing in the Senate if we're going to do it. It's considered an extreme long shot, but you never know. In 2006, we were on the last bill leaving the station, December 9. So you never know. And then the 3rd big deadline is the hammer, September 30th, 2021. If we don't have AML reauthorized, it expires. It could always get a little short-term extension, but we don't want that. We want to get a real reauthorization. Moving very quickly to the 117th Congress, and I'm running out of time. There are a couple big concepts. Number one, instead of 1 or 2 committees being involved in AML and these AML related issues, I've counted we could have as many as 9 committees in the Senate involved in our future. And that's because there are going to be some mega bills that get introduced and discussed in the Senate. And an example is this year. And by the way, as Greg mentioned also, all the bills introduced this year have to be reintroduced in the new Congress. Some will be exactly as they are now, and some will have some amendments. So that's going to be a continuing issue that we will monitor and be involved with. But this year, what we're seeing is the introduction of large mega bills, as I would call them. Cory Booker of New Jersey. Now, what does he have to do with our issues? He has introduced with Tammy Duckworth of Illinois a $100 billion package to generate jobs with $10 billion for AML tucked in. Debbie Dingell of Michigan has another bill. We are going to see the introduction of mega bills, and even Matt Cartwright was working on a coal package, but it never got introduced in this Congress. So we may see coal packages. We're going to see a water infrastructure bill, which could involve OM&R, transportation infrastructure bills, again, the mega jobs bills, and multiple committees. And I won't take the time now to mention them all because you all may have some questions. Now, if the Senate were to flip, Manchin of West Virginia would go from ranking Democrat to chairman of the House Energy and Natural Resources Committee. And Barrasso of Wyoming would lose his chairmanship on Environment and Public Works and become ranking Republican. And Enzi of Wyoming is also a chair who would become a ranking. So there's, even without the Senate flipping to the other party, there are going to be a lot of musical chairs going on, and we're going to watch that very carefully. I don't think we'll have an influence over who gets what. That's really inside baseball, but we're going to be involved with all the upcoming new chairs and ranking members. And so the bottom line is, as Greg said, past is prologue, but I view this as a relay race where we go around the track again and again and again, year after year after year. Some people get tired and stop for a while. Other people come in and join in the effort. And one thing we do know, which is so much has been delayed in this Congress since 2000, the 2 years of this 116th Congress, that the new Congress, which is 117, will be regardless of who wins the elections, it will be full of pent-up frustration for new legislation. And the last point I'm going to make is we are going to have major competition in terms of getting the attention of the key legislators to make sure that AML does not get lost in all of these debates. So we are going to try to, whether we're a standalone, part of a coal package, or hitch our wagon to some other major bill, we are going to try every avenue we can to get reauthorized by September 30th, 2021. Thank you. And you can email me anytime, louise.dunlap@gmail.com. And thank you for everything you all are doing. It's just amazing what comes together in this conference. Thanks.
Thank you, Louise. We still have time for questions. And there was a question, I think, that was asked maybe very late in Greg's presentation, but because this is a continuation of what Greg had presented, I'm going to re-ask this question for your comment. And the question is, has there been any discussion on the Hill regarding evaluation of the state and tribal AML pilot program in regards to more permanent legislation such as reclaim?
The answer is yes. And I didn't get into pilot, but pilot is a really successful, important addition to our overall effort. It was originally introduced by Hal Rogers of Kentucky, a Republican, who was chair of the House Appropriations Committee when it was first introduced. And this is the power of citizens. Citizens in Kentucky got to Hal Rogers and asked him to introduce this pilot legislation. It comes through the Appropriations Committee. There are some critics of pilot, which I think some of the criticisms are really unfounded and based on not understanding it. I know that in some states, some citizens groups have been frustrated with their difficulty in getting their proposals in front of their state agencies for consideration. However, in Pennsylvania, we have developed a really good working relationship with DEP, and DEP has, I mean, you don't get all the projects you want, but DEP has been generally really receptive to citizens' recommendations for pilot projects. Now, can it be made permanent? It could be. And there are some naysayers at Office of Management and Budget, which is really an arm of the White House. So again, a lot depends on the elections. I mean, if it's the same group of people that are there now, we will have a more difficult time making it a permanent program. But hope springs eternal, and we hope that we can, because it's an additional thing. And what I didn't get into is, we know that with the state of the coal industry as it is right now, not having trouble because of environmental regulations and SMCRA, but the competition from natural gas and renewables, the long-term viability of some coal operations is a question mark. So then the issue becomes, how long can the fees continue if we have a 15-year extension? We feel we have to get the 15-year extension because some of these projects are long-term projects. They last for years, they take years to plan, and 7 years will be right on us right away. That's in the Barrasso Senate bill, and there's not a lot of appetite for that, or for reducing the fees. So I think we're going to see multiple proposals for how to fund AML going forward. The fees are the cornerstone, but there may be various proposals for funds from the general treasury and for different programs, and pilot could play a really valuable role in that regard. I should also mention, I forgot to do this, there are a bunch of caucuses being formed too, in addition to all the committees that we're going to have to deal with, especially in the Senate. Congressman Reschenthaler, Republican, Pennsylvania, and Eric Swalwell, a Democrat from California, both sit on judiciary together, at odds, as you know, over the impeachment issue, shouting matches. Behind the scenes, they became friends, and they've created a critical materials caucus, which may also be introducing legislation in the new Congress, again, regardless of who wins the general election. So that's just one example, again, of both the role of Pennsylvania and the bipartisan nature of the whole effort.
Thank you, Louise. I would invite everybody to really look at some of the chat through this presentation, because Louise has been such a mentor to many, especially working in the trenches. And it's no wonder why OSMRE provided her with the ECHO Award, because she truly deserves it. We always learn a lot from Louise, and she truly, we need more people like her. So Louise, thank you very, very much.
Well, thank you, but I have to say, I learned from the watershed groups, the coal impacted groups. I mean, that's why this collaboration is so important, because I certainly don't have all the answers. And I see myself as an ear and a voice. I try to help the local groups be directly effective in Congress, and that's the role I play. So it's really collaborative. Thank you.
Well, I think that you truly exemplify that it takes a village.
It does.
So thank you. I'm not seeing.
Well, it takes a watershed.
We need a watershed moment.
Yes, exactly.
I'm not seeing any other questions at this point, but hold on, Louise, after this presentation, there may be others. So thank you,
Okay.
everybody,
Okay.
very, very much.
May I add one last
Sure,
little thing?
absolutely.
Ann Damon, who has been miraculous in all of this, had Ann and Mike Hewitt and Robert Hughes, also known as Bobby Hughes, have all been to Washington and have been incredibly powerful lobbyists for the AML reauthorization. Robert testified. Ann has had innumerable contacts. So, you know, for this conference, they might seem semi-invisible, but their efforts have been really effective. And same with Joe Pizarczyk and John Dawes and others. But I just wanted to make sure that was understood, because they're so modest and behind the scenes, making all this come together.
Thank you, Louise. All right, we're going to move on to the next session. So thank you again. For those needing professional development hours, don't forget to do your form. Thank you.
Thank you.